Hi, Mike Pangia here. Today we're going to do my dearly departed mother's famous meatloaf. Now it's a little bit unusual. Most of you are probably used to seeing meatloaf with a brown gravy, onions, which can be very good. This meatloaf that I'm going to present to you today is beyond very good. You'll have to trust me on that. It's a red tomato sauce based Italian oriented meatloaf. And it's what I grew up with in my childhood, and it's ruined me for other meatloafs. The army was big on meatloaf in the mess halls. They frequently served it. And it was okay, it was edible, but it didn't even remind me of how good my mom's meatloaf was. So as a tribute to her today, I'm going to present her meatloaf. Being fair, full disclosure, she never gave me the recipe because when I was young and she was making this meatloaf, I wasn't particularly interested in cooking. So what I've done is I've had to reconstruct it by taste and texture, trial and error. And at this point, I have it down. Although I admit I've done a couple of tricks that I don't think she ever did. Like I use wine in the red sauce. I don't believe she ever put wine in her red sauces. I use water in the ground beef mix, a little bit of water, and I don't believe she ever did that. But I needed to do it to get the right texture, if you can trust me on that. Let's get into it and make some fabulous Italian meatloaf. Normally when I have a little bit of cheese to hand grate, I'll use a box grater like this. But when there's more than about a quarter of a cup or so, I go for automation. I use my mini food processor, which makes quick work of a hard cheese. Next, I'll add unflavored breadcrumbs. You don't have to even measure, just make a pile equal to the amount of cheese. Then we have 4 cloves of garlic, which we're going to finely mince and add to the cheese and breadcrumbs mixture. Parsley. We want to get rid of most of the stems of the parsley and tear off as much of the leaves as possible and leave as much of the stems as possible. Then chop it coarsely, and we're going to use that in the mix. We'll add it to the cheese, garlic, and breadcrumb mixture. Now we'll get to the cooking part. A splash of olive oil in the bottom of our pan. Heat it up. A few shakes of dried oregano. A few shakes of garlic powder. Then we're going to add 2 large cans of crushed tomatoes. Stir it and bring it to a simmer. Going to add about a half a teaspoon of table salt. Stir it well, and once it's simmering, we're going to add our red wine, a dry red wine. Next, we'll need 3 large eggs. Stir them up well. Put them aside. We're going to take 2 pounds of ground beef. I like the one with the higher fat content, 20% fat. Going to add a cup of water, mix it well, and the eggs. In they go, and we're going to hand mix the whole batch. Now we're going to take all of these solids that we made, the parsley, cheese, breadcrumbs, garlic, mix that in by hand. About a teaspoon of salt in the mix. best way to really mix it. Now we're going to spray our roasting pan and take the mixed meat that we've made, form it into a loaf shape. And then we're going to actually form a trench down the center as a place to hold the hard-boiled eggs that we're going to use. Three hard-boiled eggs fit nicely into the trench. Close it up and smooth the loaf down so it's a nice even shape. Into the oven she goes. Once we've heated it a bit, we're going to add the tomato sauce that we made. That'll go over the top generously. And back into the oven to complete the cooking. If you're planning on freezing this meatloaf, let me point out that the hard-boiled eggs we've used do not freeze well. So if you're deliberately making it to freeze portions, you'll have to leave out the hard-boiled egg. The second thing is when you serve it, you may be tempted to put your slice of meatloaf on the plate and pour the sauce on top of it, the gravy on top of it, spread it out. Aesthetically, it's much nicer if you do it this way. Spread a coating of the red sauce on your empty plate first, and then a slab of the dry meatloaf right on top of it. There's enough sauce there that as the person is eating the meatloaf, they can certainly sponge up the sauce with the meat, and it works out really well. It looks much more appetizing, so do it that way if you would. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again next time. I know you've subscribed, but just a little reminder, make sure you've subscribed. You should see a little red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. If you don't see it, would you let me know that there's something wrong and we'll see if we can fix it. Thanks again for watching. I look forward to seeing you again next time. On diner menus you will find meatloaf, a dish that's much maligned. But Mom's meatloaf breaks the mold, beats out the others by tenfold.